Welcome or welcome back to my channel. I hope you guys are having a wonderful day today. Today I'm going to go over all the books that I read in February. So over the month of February, I read a total of 7 books, which equaled out to 2,998 pages with an average star rating of 3.81. Now, I didn't expect to read as many books as I did last month, but I ended up reading the exact same amount. So I think maybe at the moment 7 is my sweet spot, maybe 6 to 8. We'll see how I go for next month, but for this month, I'm really happy with myself, really happy with the amount of books that I read. And I'm actually quite happy with some of the books that I ended up reading this month. There was a couple of disappointments, but overall, the average ratings on books that I was giving them was higher than 3 stars. So let's get into all of those books now. So the first book I read in February was Onyx Storm by Rebecca Yarros. I rated this book 4 stars. Now, I can't say much about this book because it is a 3rd book in the Empyrean series. So I don't want to give away spoilers for the last 2 books because they are quite big books and there's a lot to spoil. I don't want to accidentally spoil anything, but to give you some background on it, I really enjoyed the first book, Fourth Wing. Really enjoyed it. 5 stars. Loved that book so much. I loved it so much. It was everything that I needed at the time. It was dragons, and the whole premise of that book is Violet Sorrengail has been forced into the War Academy by her mother. So she didn't want to be in the War Academy. She wanted to be a scribe, but her mother's forced her into the War Academy. So now she has to do everything she can to survive. Now, I loved the first book. Unfortunately, because of the hype of the first book, when I went into the second book, we just weren't getting what we needed. To me, it seemed rushed, like she was trying to get a book out really fast. Not saying that it was a bad book in the way that it was a horrible book to read. It was too long, too drawn out. We repeated the same trope that was in the first book, so it did make it go a lot longer. But at the end of the day, all I felt was that she tried to rush out a book way too quickly, which could have been condensed down a little bit more. I don't know. It was the hype around it was, at the end of the day, its downfall, so it didn't do as well. So coming into the 3rd book, which I read this month, I was trying to keep my hopes low. I was trying not to keep them too high, trying to just be average going into it. And I think that helped it. So it still didn't get the full 5 stars that the first one did, but it did get a higher rating than the second one. So the second one I ended up rating, I think, 3.5 stars because I was so disappointed in it. But this one, obviously, I got 4 stars. So it was better than the second one. It wasn't as drawn out. She was shorter. She wasn't as long. Honestly, I feel like in the middle, it did get to a point where we were repeating ourselves. So exactly what they were doing just kept repeating itself. They were doing the same thing over and over again until we got back to the point. I was enjoying it in the first third, and in the second third, it sort of dwindled a little bit. They were doing stuff repetitively. A lot of stuff was happening. And then in the last third, as is with all of her books, we really upped the stakes. We were heart pumping. Everything was happening so quickly, and I had such a fantastic experience for the end of this book. I can't believe she left us with that ending, but again, it's Rebecca Yarros. She's going to leave us with huge cliffhanger endings where you do not know where it's going to go from here, and I really enjoy that. We'll just have to see. I think it's going to take her 2 years to write the 4th book, and by all means, take your time, work on it, finesse it, make it exactly what you want it to be, because I'm so excited to see what she does from here. So the second book I read was an audio book, and it was The Mortal Queen by Ashley Metzler. So basically, Aisling is promised in marriage with the Fae King for an alliance to protect the lives on both the Fae and the human side. She's then taken to the Fae Kingdom to live among monsters, but the longer she stays, the more she realizes that the stories she'd been told growing up may not have been exactly what they seemed. So I received an ARC copy of this audiobook from NetGalley, and I ended up rating it 2.5 stars. Now, let me start with the good things. The audiobook narrator was so good. So she provided accents for every different character. So they all had a different voice that you were listening to. So it made it a lot easier to catch up with who was talking and what they were saying. Like, everything was so well thought out in that respect that I really enjoyed it, and it made it more immersive in that way. As far as the story goes, it's definitely a slow burn, but I feel like I was waiting for a depth to the characters that just didn't arrive. For example, King Lear's character, the Fae King, he was quite flat throughout it. I wanted more depth to him. I wanted to understand him and why he made this decision to marry her. And I just wanted to know. I wanted to know about him so that I could feel the chemistry that they eventually got. As far as the main character Aisling goes, she became repetitive on things she was saying, but in the way that she kept repeating in her head what her family members were saying, but the exact same thing. We weren't repeating something new. She was repeating the same thing. So when I'm listening to that on the audiobook being said to me, it just seems like she's repeating herself. And she became predictable and irritating by that point. This isn't against the book itself, just that character was irritating to me. Yes, the main male character was flat, the main female character was irritating, but all the rest of the characters, they were well thought out. Like, she made friends with people in this realm that I actually thought were better than the main characters. So in that respect, it was good for the side characters, but unfortunately the main characters just had no substance. Like, no matter how many times the main female character was shown proof of what people were telling her, she refused to believe it. And to a certain extent, you understand that, because all her life she's been told one thing and now she's being told something different. And I understand that. I can see what's happening with that. And I understand that she may not want to believe it. But we got to a point that it happened through the entire book. It wasn't just at the start and then she starts to realize. It went through the entire book. And it wasn't until about 60% that something happened that caught my interest, that we started to meet the creatures of the forest, if you will. I honestly think the author is no doubt good at building apprehension and conflict, but ultimately I was left more questions than answers, and I don't think that I'm as invested to find out what those answers are. The main character made a decision at the end that made me quite angry, but maybe it gets better in the next books, but I honestly don't have any reason to want to continue, and I don't particularly care about the characters enough to continue. The next book I read was Immortal Dark by Tigist Guruma. I don't know if that's how you say her last name, but there it is. So in this book, we follow Kitten Adain, who's been raised away from the society that she was born into, that involves humans living with vampires that are bound to their households. But when Keaton's sister June disappears, she's convinced that their family vampire is the reason. So in order to find out what happened to her sister, she joins Uxley University to learn about how humans and vampires coexist, but also keep a very close eye on the vampire who's living in her family home. So I really enjoyed this book. I read it for the Homey and Homely book club by She's Booked and Busy on Fable, and I rated it 5 stars. Now, this book is quite dark and broody. You sort of go into it thinking it's going to be one thing and it's something totally different. But at the end of the day, when I finished the book, I could not think of a better way it could have been written. So I honestly could not see any flaws in it at the end. As I was reading, I thought, oh, this is going to be full of flaws. There's going to be so many things wrong with it, because the main character is so stubborn and she won't get through her thick head the truth of things. But when you're experiencing her emotions with her and what she's going through and her grief and everything, you start to understand that all of her decisions are made because she has the proof, but also she's so filled with grief during making these decisions that she's not thinking it through properly. And you're with her through her journey to sort of understand what she's feeling and everything and overcome that and find out the truth. So I, at the end of it, really enjoyed it. Throughout reading it, I cried, I giggled, I gasped. Most of the time that things happened, I couldn't tell what was going to happen next. I was on the edge of my seat. She kept making decisions that I was like, I don't know how she's going to get out of these decisions she's making, but then she does, and she finds out more things and secrets. And I really enjoyed the journey. It was really good, and I think that the second book will be so much better. It's got a lot of Black representation. The author herself is of Ethiopian descent. She works at a university in Australia, and I don't know, I really enjoyed her writing, and I can't wait to see what she does with this next. So the next book I read in February was Flawless by Elsie Silver. Now it's basically about a bull rider named Rhett who's losing his sponsorships over a leaked video of him joking with a friend. And his agent, in an effort to clean up Rhett's image, has assigned his daughter Summer as his assistant to help keep him in line and help him not ruin the sponsorships that he has left and to get some reputation back. Now, I gave this book 2.5 stars. I read it in my Valentine's Day video. I honestly thought that I would enjoy it a lot more. This series has such a cult-like fan following that I thought it would be so much better than it was. Now, this isn't a spoiler, this is the first chapter. The sponsorship that the book is based on him losing, and the reason why he needs an assistant to watch out for him and make sure he's not doing anything bad. He lost a sponsorship with milk because he said he didn't like milk. I could have forgiven that and left it where it was if the book was better. The whole storyline was messy at the start. And yeah, okay, we've got the stereotypical keeping him in line, and they have to live in close proximity to each other, so the romance is going to develop from there. But things were being thrown in that didn't have to be there. It was like she was trying to make the book better, and I think with a lot more finessing it would have done a good job at it, but ultimately it made it start to get messy. So we started off with a milk sponsorship and I was like, I don't know, and then we got better and it was smoother, apart from the fact that he couldn't keep his hands off his stuff whenever he talked to her. I could have gotten past that. I could have kept going. It was smooth ride. It was so good. I was getting into the romance of it and everything. But then he would come out with stuff like, that annoys her, and I get off on that, which I could have gotten past. But then we went into, she seems relaxed with me, and I get off on that. And it started to get too much. It happens 9 times at intervals that just didn't need that connotation to it. It did not need the I get off on that connotation. Not needed at all. The whole book, he was thinking with his junk. And I kept talking to my partner about it because it irritates me in books when men are portrayed as all they think about is this. They don't think about the personality. They don't think about how lovely her voice is and like all of the normal things that maybe I thought just females thought about. But when a female author is writing a male and they don't fully understand male, like what goes on in their mind, I feel like all we get is them thinking with their junk. And I was talking to my partner about it, and it was irritating him as well because he himself doesn't think like that. And I understand if you're trying to portray this guy as someone like that, but she was trying to portray this guy as a gentleman. And the fact that whenever he didn't open the door for her or do anything that was gentlemanly, he felt bad. Now, you cannot tell me that he's meant to be this big gentlemanly person, and then in your next sentence, when he's in his head, or even when he's talking to someone else, that he's thinking about other stuff straight away. When we first meet this woman, I don't know, it just didn't rub me the right way. And then all of a sudden at the end, there was all these things coming up out of the blue that we weren't expecting, just to create drama at the end and create a conflict at the end. And like, I understand it, that's okay, but it's like everything was poured into the soup bowl and we stirred it up. A lot of the things didn't need to happen. We could have made him a lot more well-rounded. When we got to the spicy scenes, I could have used less of them. If I'm being honest with you, I could have used less of them. And that was the sad part, because we had a build up the whole time to this point, and then it was too much. So ultimately I didn't enjoy it. Other people enjoy this book fine. Other people say that it's the least favorite book in the series, and that's okay. I might continue the book. They're still good books to just lay there and binge when you're not having a great day, or when your brain's not working properly, or you need an in-between book because you're going into a book slump. Great books for that. And I'm not going to give up on the series, but this first book just did not do it for me, and that's okay. The next book I read was Beach Read by Emily Henry. This is basically about an accomplished romance author, January Andrews. She arrives at North Bear Shores with the keys to her late father's secret house and a deadline for her next book looming. So she finds out that while she's in this town, her college rival just happens to be here. The one that they used to write together in college, and they were constantly competing against each other. He's in this town. And she finds out that he's struggling to write one of his books, and he writes more books that they don't have happy endings. Basically, someone's going to die at the end. It's going to happen. So they decide that they'll make a deal, that they will swap genres and they will write what each other writes, and whoever gets published first wins. And so throughout the whole book, they sort of take each other on these adventures to teach each other what their genre takes to write. I really enjoyed this book. I rated it 5 stars. I didn't think when I first heard of Emily Henry that I would like her books. I thought it was another overhyped author and everyone was just talking about her books so obsessively and they wouldn't be good. But oh my God, do I love Emily Henry. She writes in a way that just sucks me in and makes me so immersed in the book. And I haven't had that in a while. It takes a lot for me to be immersed and not looking at how many pages are left in the chapter and how far along I am in the book. I just flew through this book. So I really enjoyed that while reading this book, I felt like I was sitting in front of the main characters in their living room or wherever they were sitting, and I was watching it. It was like I was with a bunch of friends and I was watching them interact, flirting. Like, all of the banter that they had was like it was happening in front of me, like I was sitting right there. Not like I was watching it on a movie, but like I was there in real time while it was happening. And I really, really enjoyed that. It really made my whole month of reading so much better. This is the book that has made me think, yes, I think Emily Henry might be for me. I've only read one other of her books before this, which was Book Lovers, and I really enjoyed both of those books. Now, both of them were in the sort of publishing industry. So the first one was editor and an agent, and this one was authors. So I really have enjoyed these books, and I can't wait to read more of her books. I have one more on my shelf. I am waiting for Funny Story to come out in the mass market paperback, the smaller one, and then I'm going to get that and I'm going to enjoy it. And I can't believe that I have found another favorite author and that they're not fantasy, they are romance. It just makes me really happy. The next book I read was Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies. So basically this is about Emily Wilde, who's writing an encyclopedia like the title says, and she's on her last chapter. So she ventures on a field study trip to, I believe, an isolated island town in something like Norway. And she is going there to study the fairy folk, but specifically the hidden ones, or the higher fae, the courtly fae, I think they call it in the book. And they are the most elusive fae. So while she's here, she's finding out all these secrets about them and trying to find them so she can finish off her encyclopedia. But as she uncovers more secrets of the hidden ones, she realizes that maybe her fellow professor, Wendell Bambleby, may be hiding something from her, and she's trying to find out what that is. So I really enjoyed the atmosphere of these books. I think that it's just so whimsical and enchanting, and I loved exploring for fairy secrets with Emily throughout the whole book. I was thinking about it after I made the video with it in it, and I used to read these books as middle grade books, these sorts of cozy fantasies, not really young adult books, because when I started to go into young adult books, that's when I started to go into the epic fantasies that were less romance and more just fantasy. I really enjoyed being nostalgic about this and being thrown back into books that I used to read when I was younger. It's something that I didn't realize I missed, because once I got into epic fantasy, we had high stakes and it was heart pumping and you don't know what's going to happen. But that does not mean that these books are any less. Like, this was so welcome and great. I really loved the atmosphere. Yes, there is more violence than the books I used to read, but it's as if they have grown up with me. So I've aged into an adult and they have come with me. And I really enjoyed it and the atmosphere. I rated it 4 stars and I stand by that rating. I think it lost 1 star only because of how chaotic the end was. But I really enjoyed that it was in her sort of journal entries and you were reading it as though she was writing it down after the things happened. So you had slightly high stakes, but it wasn't high stakes with the fact that you don't know that they're going to survive, because she's writing it after the fact. So it was really, really immersive, really good, and I really enjoyed this book so much. So much so that the next book I read this month, the last book I read, was Emily Wilde's Map of the Otherlands. Now, I rated this one 4 stars as well. I enjoyed that this one sort of upped the stakes a little bit more. So it was just as whimsical, just as enchanting, just as magical. Everything was beautiful, but we had more chaos. And she upped the ante a little bit, and it didn't up it too much that we lost the essence of what the first one was and what this world needs to bring. I'm really enjoying this world. I can't wait to read the 3rd one. I believe I either will get it on my Kindle or I'll wait for the mass market paperback to come out, because at the moment we have the trade paperbacks, which are larger, and I want it to match all the other books on my shelves. So I will wait for that. But this book was really just so good. I am glad that I finished with that book for the month. And I'm honestly glad that at the end of the day, I've discovered another book that has been hiding on my shelf and I just didn't know it was good until I picked it up and realized how good it was. So that was all the books that I read in February. I really enjoy making these sorts of videos. I really enjoy telling you guys what I've read and what I thought of them. They are a little bit harder to put together, but I sort of like sitting down and writing about the books that I've read and what I thought of them. And I really enjoy sharing that with you guys, and I hope you guys enjoy it too. Once again, if you guys are enjoying this video or any of these videos that I'm making, please feel free to like this video or subscribe. And if you think that I'm going to get lost in your algorithm, subscribe, turn on the notification bell. It'll let you know every time I upload a video. And I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your week, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.